Hello, welcome to the Matchbook Racing Review with Don McLean and I, where we get to look back at an excellent weekend's racing, and we're going to look forward as well because it's two-year-old season. I love this time of year, and all those two-year-olds, Don, that we've been banging on about for the last 3, 4, 5 months. We get to see how good they've turned out to be. We've been Team Threaten and Siskin between us. They might take each other on this weekend, but either way, it's going to be a very informative Saturday afternoon at Newmarket.
They might, yeah. No, it's like the 2-year-olds. It takes a while for me, anyway, throughout the season for them to kind of, I guess, to get a handle on them because they're babies, they're new, and then obviously, as with any horse, the more often they run, the more of a handle you get on them, the more recognisable they are, the more identifiable they are, and then say the Middle Park, which we'll come on to. That could be a cracking race now at the top. Definitely, the top 3 or 4 turn up. And yeah, they come together and they take each other on in the Group 1s, and no, it's a good time of year.
What we're going to do first of all is look back at I suppose the feature races for older horses at the weekend. One of them took place at Ayr, of course the Ayr Gold Cup, and also look at that 10-furlong handicap at Newbury, which looked quite good, run by Caradoc. But first of all, the Ayr Gold Cup winner. We were talking about whether or not we were going to include it or just do a 2-year-old special, but as is often the case with an Ayr Gold Cup winner, for all I put up an 8-year-old in the race, you get a progressive horse who I think this one isn't just going to go on to compete in the top handicaps, but winning that off a mark in the early hundreds as a 3-year-old. First run really at a conventional track as well, and I'd still venture that he was possibly on the wrong side given how the race panned out. He was up there throughout. I thought he was a very worthy winner, and he's a Pattern Company horse in the making.
I think you're right, Tom. Yeah, I thought he did. He was very, very good. I mean, often with these big handicaps over any distance, you're kind of looking back through the field and try and find what's the 1 or the 2 to take out of it who could maybe be marked up a little bit. And generally, you can find 1 or 2. But actually, on Saturday's race, I thought the winner was the one. As you say, he was on the wrong side. It was on the near side in a small group of 6, whereas 18 horses went to the far side. And it was interesting listening to Richard Kingscott afterwards. He said that Tom Dascombe said, "Look, try and go straight if you can." And I think Tom Eves on Major Jumbo, he said he was going to go straight, and he was drawn 20 or 21. So Richard Kingscott, once he knew that, he was happy with his game plan to stay on the near side. And as it turned out, I think he probably won despite racing on the near side, as opposed to because of it, because he came clear of the next best horse. Gunmetal finished second on the near side, second of the 6, and he pulled over 3 lengths clear of him. And Gunmetal was only 9th overall. Now, look, you only had a small number of horses, relatively speaking, racing on the near side. So maybe there was no advantage to be gained from racing far side or near side. But even more than that, though, I thought he had to do a lot of running to get there. Like, he had to come clear of his rivals on the near side in order to win the race. And he did. And, he was racing on his own, really, for more than a furlong on the near side. And to pick up as he did, as you say, he's only a 3-year-old. Don't think Richard Fattyhorse Don't Touch was the last 3-year-old to win it, and he went on as a 4-year-old the following season and was rated a stone higher. He was a listed race horse. So, yeah, and, even beforehand, Rich Kingston was saying that the ground, he thought the ground might be on the quick side for him, so he might be even better when he gets back on soft ground. I know he's got a lot of good form at Chester, but he proved, as you say, on a conventional track, he could be that good. It's probably a career best. And yeah, I know he's had plenty of racing, but he's still only 3. He's a very interesting horse for the future as well.
And I thought that, part of the talk about him being the wrong side, I like strength in numbers when you have sides, and he wasn't necessarily representing the side which had strength in numbers. But also, if you look at the Bronze Cup and the Silver Cup, and also the 5-furlong handicap on the Thursday, the action had developed sort of middle to far side. I think there were a few shorteners in the market that side as a result of that. And, there's whether or not there is a track bias, when you get that sort of in connections minds, you often see a race develop that way. So I thought he was pretty good value given where he came, where he raced. And also I think the ground was quick enough because he hung a little bit, and I'd venture he probably wasn't letting himself down fully on that ground as well. So all in all, I was very impressed. Coming into the race, I was sort of nervous. He'd done most of his racing at Chester, he'd run at Pontefract, he'd won at Windsor as well. But I mean, he proved himself at a conventional track. Over 6 as well, was worried whether, I know he had lots of pace, but I had a few question marks about him. He answered all of those. So it'd be interesting whether we see him again and what race might ultimately suit him going into his 4-year-old season next year. But I think it's going to be, he's won that off 101. He's going to be up into listed class, you'd imagine, or back up into listed class. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and like as long as he's okay after this race, there might be another race in him this season, because the ground is now going to get softer than it was on the day, and that should suit him. And like he's run 12 times, which is quite a lot for a 3-year-old. You wouldn't have thought he'd that much. Well, I suppose as a sprinter you can progress, but like he's still a young horse. And yeah, like as I said, the fact that there were so few horses on the near side, whether or not there was a pair, I think the first 2 home in the Silver Cup were drawn low, and even in the Bronze Cup on Friday it went low, and therefore more horses went low. It's a self-fulfilling, as time goes on and people go, right, you need to go to the near side or to the far side, because that's where they're all coming from. And to have only 6 horses and 18 on the far side, if you're betting where the winner would come from, you'd obviously bet on the bigger group, because they're probably going to take each other into the race as well. So I think there's an awful lot to like about it.
Yeah, both positive about the Angel Alexander, the winner of the 3-year-old winner of the Ayr Gold Cup. Also, we're going to cover a couple of races from Newbury. We will do the Mill Reef, which was the feature on the day for the juveniles. But just to touch upon Caradoc, I know you wanted to mention Caradoc, who I thought lengthened away very nicely. I know he tried 1.5 miles before, but Ed Walker was keen to say afterwards he won the 10 furlong handicap at Newbury, which took place after the Mill Reef. But I think he's going to, the further he goes into next season, I think he's going to be a nice horse. But he clearly still needs a bit of time to develop. Now, he has to have quick ground, conversely.
Yeah, he did well to win. It was a strange race, because they seemed to go steady enough and then quicken, and but the pace horses didn't they didn't feature in towards the finish of the race. I thought Great Example did very well to quicken up. He got a gap on the rail, and he picked up and went into it and set up what looked like a race winning advantage. He was just run down by Caradoc and well, not quite by Gibbs Hill, but by Caradoc late on. He's a horse who can, and it probably wasn't an advantage either to race on the far side at Newbury. He was flush against the far side rail. You generally want to be middle, don't you? And Newbury's home straight. And Great Example can maybe be marked up a little bit on that run. He's got form with Le Don de Vie from Goodwood earlier, so he's an interesting horse. But Caradoc, yeah, he did very well. I thought, at York on his previous run over 1.5 miles, I backed him that day. It looked like he was. He probably wasn't advantaged that day by being back in the field, but it looked like he was coming to go very close, and he wasn't an unlucky loser, but his run seemed to just flatten out close home. So you kind of thought maybe a drop to 10 furlongs would be a positive for him. He had Ryan Moore on board as well, and it didn't look like he was going to get there about a half furlong out. But yeah, no, it was a good performance by him. To see today, he's been taken out of the Cambridgeshire. He's not going to run in it, because I know it was an option for him under a penalty, but he's out of it now. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But yeah, I think 10 furlongs. I think Ed Walker said afterwards that maybe 1.5 miles next year might be the thing for him, and that makes a lot of sense as well, doesn't it?
I really like the way that when Gibbs Hill got to him, because I thought Gibbs Hill was going to fly past him. The horse instantly picked up and went again.
Yeah.
And I take the point about York. I thought, I just think he might be one of those horses that just needs a little bit more time. But I know Forest Dean was disappointing. He was well back. He was £5 well in. Declan Ricks came on the podcast, and I was arguing that Forest Dean was good value at 4.0, which he was at the time. But
well, good
value and still run stinkers, and he was very disappointing. And Declan was very positive about Caradoc as opposed to him, so he was his best bet of the day. So well done to Declan. But Forest Dean ultimately, I think he over raced a bit early doors, but he just didn't pick up at all.
No, he didn't. And look, it's easy to say afterwards he was a ridiculous price, but like beforehand, he's a progressive horse. He's racing under £5 penalty, but he's £10 higher in future. £5 well in, albeit in a competitive handicap. You can easily argue that 3-1 or 7-2 or whatever was value. So you can't retrospectively fit value and say that was a crap bet because it was because he's been beaten. It's beforehand that you need to put it all into the mix. But no, I'm sure Forest Dean will bounce back. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the race came up quickly enough after his last race. No, he ran flat. So there you take him out of it. But I still think it was a good, strong race. Like Gibbs Hill ran very well in his previous run at Kempton when he came from the back and looked to winner as well. And as you said as well, I thought it looked like Gibbs Hill was coming to get Caradoc, and then it was just a case of whether or not he'd get Great Example. But Caradoc planned more, and maybe that was, for a horse who gets 10 furlongs very well in what looked like a slowly run race early on. Maybe his stamina was just kicking in at the end because he was gutsy, and like Ryan Moore, I thought had him in the in a really good position. He conjured a really good run from him. He brought him out to the centre of the track as well, which is a positive. So he did all of those things in order to maximise his chance of winning. And yeah, he's relatively light to race as well, Caradoc, for a 4-year-old. So yeah, he's another one to keep in mind, I'd say, for the future.
Yeah, and just to go back to Forest Dean, the joy is if you take that early price with Matchbook, you can, if you have got that bit of value, you can still make it count. I didn't do that. I let it run, and the writing was on the wall pretty early doors. But there you go. I still think he had the best form coming into the race, and he would have got up 110, but it'd be up in grade, you'd imagine, on the back of that. But the winner was good. Sorry,
if you can back a lot of horses at 4.0 who end up going off 2.6 or 2.7, then you'll get on the right side of it for sure.
Eventually. Now, let's talk about 2-year-olds. We're going to reflect on 2 2-year-old performances from Newbury over Friday and Saturday, which have had an impact on the Guineas market. Less so in a way Pierre Lapin, who is a beautifully named son of Capella Sansevero, but more importantly, Beatrix Potter, and of course, Pierre Lapin, the French for Peter Rabbit. Notable for Capella Sansevero in his first season as a sire, that he's got a pretty smart horse. He's got a pretty good strike rate as a sire as well. I was impressed with this horse. Now, the one negative or possible worry, Don, is the fact that we last saw him towards the end of May, where he was impressive enough for all the form didn't look anything to get too excited about. And then it was possible that he was going to go to Royal Ascot. Now, obviously, they kept him off for a while because he took so long to get over that race. He's going to be a better horse next year. Although I think you'd hope most 2-year-olds would be a better horse next year. Naturally, that's the nature of it, although not all of them are. But he looks certain to fit into that category. But I was impressed that he came back from a break with such a performance. Mystery Power, I suppose, in some ways was the right horse to finish second, a length and a half back in second. So I'd be positive enough about him. But Roger Varian was keen to point out afterwards, you want to see how he comes out of this race, given what he did after Haydock.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? And it was interesting as well that Roger Varian was saying he didn't. I mean, you kind of thought he hadn't run since May, so he's obviously had some kind of a setback, which is why he wasn't running again until late September, because they were talking about the Coventry Stakes directly after that the Haydock win. But it was just, he said he was a bit weak and he just wanted to give him more time. So that kind of suggests that it would be surprising if we saw him again before the end of the season, wouldn't it? Given that he'd been off for so long and he's had this run, that's his first run back after a long break, and that he is maybe fragile or just a horse who needs time to grow into himself. But the market was interesting as well. He was strong on Friday evening, and then he was weak on Saturday morning, but strong again then just before off time. So, obviously he impressed the paddock watchers when he arrived into the paddock just before the race. So, yeah, but it was a very impressive performance. He looked to be a little bit keen early on, and he was a little bit green as well when Andre Atseni asked to pick up. He just kind of looked around him a little bit and pricked his ears, but he finished off his race really strongly. And for a half-brother to Harry Angel, you'd think he's probably a sprinter, but he was very strong in the finish. Like you kind of think, if you're watching the race and didn't know his pedigree, you'd think he'll definitely get 7 anyway. But it's going to be interesting to see which way he goes.
Yeah, Harry Angel, who won the race 3 years ago for Clive Cox on his second and final start of that year. And I agree. I think we might just see the same. I'm not sure we'll definitely see Pierre Lapin again. He's got an entry in the Dewhurst, but Roger Varian said afterwards that he thinks they'll stay at 6. As he gets stronger, he'll get quicker, although they might try 7. But I think I'd be hugely surprised if we saw him at Newmarket in whatever it is, three and a half weeks in the Dewhurst. And I think that might be it. But I was positive enough about him. And I couldn't really see any hard luck stories from the race. For all Milotru, the horse who actually put up for the race, it might sound like I'm pocket talking, he hung over to that far side rail. I wonder if that was a ground thing. I wonder if he actually just wants a little bit more ease. He didn't look that happy at York on very quick ground either. Yeah. And I still think he might be better than that. But it's not a sort of hard luck story, if you like. But I thought he ran with perhaps more encouragement in the early part of the race. And then when he was asked to go, he hung over to his left. And then the finishing position would have suggested perhaps.
Yeah, I backed him as well. I thought he'd won.
Great mind.
Exactly. We'll both get it right one of these days, as opposed to both getting it wrong. But no, I kind of didn't think he was happy at all at any stage. John Mossay seemed to want to bring him to his right, and he seemed to want to go to his left, even in the early part of the race. And then when he let him down, it looked like he was coming there with a challenge that was going to take him close. But when you drift over to the far rail like that, especially at Newbury, you're not going to win. And I think it's I think he's definitely better than that. And for whatever it was that caused him to hang over, it might have been the ground. His Group 3 wins on soft ground or easy ground, then maybe getting back on easier ground might be the thing for him. But yeah, to be definitely giving him another chance.
Yeah, and the fact that he ran a more of a back to front race than he had done previously, where he kept on, just suggests I think he was feeling that ground. And I don't know, but I don't know. I would be tempted with him down in grade somewhere. I don't know where they'll go. We'll see. He's in the tracker anyway. The other 2-year-old to mention is definitely Quadrilateral, who won a Fillies conditions race, her second start, her second success. She moved from last to first with ease. This was over 7 furlongs. Is she now roundabout joint favourite for the Guineas? I think she is. I mean, it was an excellent performance at a track, and of course in distance she's already won over. But it was a 9-length success. She's a daughter of Frank. She's got it all there, hasn't she? And you would imagine that a step up to a mile is going to be absolutely no problem whatsoever. What she'll get beyond that remains to be seen. But there's a bit of hope, I think, given the stamina that Frankel seems to inject in them. And there was a winner up to 10 furlongs in the pedigree. I'd say a mile looks about right for the early part of next season anyway. Not certain we'll see her again but it remains to be seen. I don't think they were firm on anything afterwards.
Yeah, no, I think she'll definitely be able to go out and trip, no problem, for sure. And she was, again, strong at the finish. Her breeding is all kind of a mile, 9 furlongs. And by Frankel, yeah, look, there's every reason to expect that she could even improve for stepping up and trip. And she looked very, very good. Time was good as well. I think it was fast. It was as fast as the listed race earlier on, and I think it was faster than the earlier race. So a good bit faster. So yeah, look, and she wasn't pushed out to any degree. She probably could have gone even faster. It was only her second run, so yeah, there's an awful lot to like. I was surprised that she was put in as favourite for the Guineas afterwards, though. But you know, I suppose it's hard to, you can't knock the quality of the performance or the pedigree. And yeah, she's an exciting filly.
It was ever so slightly faster than Tabarak. You mentioned the listed race. Tabarak carried a pound extra. I mean, comparatively for a juvenile, it was an excellent time and a very, very comfortable performance. I suppose the fact that she's been installed as Guinea's favourite is you know, because fillies wise, you've had a few beating each other, with the likes of Love beating Alpine Star, who then beat Stable Companion Albania over in Ireland, and we're probably yet to have anything over here better that. For all she's not contested a pattern company race, that as far as the future milers goes, that looks the best 2-year-old juvenile performance so far. Although I was taken enough with Love in a Moy Glare, but it just came as a bit of a surprise. It wasn't like she was one of the Aidan O'Brien, you know, sort of 2-to-1 shots or even money shots going and winning a Moy Glare. She'd been beaten on her previous start.
Yeah, we kicked that around a bit, didn't we? Like there were probably reasons, you know, she did fast enough pace in the debutante, so yeah, she was very good in the Moy Glare. So yeah, look, she's a nice filly. But no, you're right, as you say, there's no standout filly yet this season. They've kind of run against each, as is often the case with juvenile fillies at this point of the season. But we'll have the Fillies Mile and the Also Sharp Stakes and the Rockfell now, so that should put a bit more of an order on them, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and they said Quadrilateral. Roger Charlton suggested it might come too soon, the Rockfell. So that's what she's got an entry in, but she might just swerve that. We'll see. I cannot wait, Don. Other than the middle part, Fillies Mile. If we get to see Alpine Star against Love again, that'll do for me. I'll be very much looking forward to that. Right. Shall we have a look ahead to the middle park and the Cheveley Park? Where do you want to start? Over to you.
Well, sure. Let's go Middle Park. See this the highlight of the weekend.
Your boy Siskin, who is, I know how much you love this horse, and quite rightly, and you've always credit where credit's due. You've been, I think, since he beat Harpocrates early May, you've been very positive about him, and certainly when he was listed win at the Curragh, onto his performance last time on easier ground, which they were worried about. He swerved a possible run, which, look, it might have been quite difficult Irish Champions weekend, going up to 7 furlongs for the National, and here he is sticking at 6. The difficulty here is he's up against Earthlight, who's unbeaten, as is he, of course. Mum's Tipple, who's unbeaten, but an utterly mind-blowing price as far as I'm concerned. Perhaps you can discuss that a little bit more. And the likes of possibly a rematch with Monarch of Egypt, who may have come on for last time threat, etc. I mean, it looks an absolute cracker. But go on, kick us off with Siskin, Dom.
It is. I'm surprised at the betting. I thought they would be the top three that you mentioned, Earthlight, Mums Tipple and Siskin. I thought they would have been closer in the betting than they are. I thought Siskin would have been closer to them than he is. If you were to ask, which of the three would be the biggest price, I would have thought maybe Mums Tipple, because look, he's, his performance at York was obviously breathtaking, but he's stepping up into a Group 1 now, and it's a whole different ballgame. Earthlight is rock solid. His performance to beat Raffle Prize, it was on ground. It was probably softer than ideal for him. Was that was very, very impressive in the pre-morning. But no, Siskin, yeah, I don't know. I thought he would be shorter, because his performance the last day the ground was almost certainly softer than ideal for him, and I think we learned a little bit more about him that day. He had to dig deep. He didn't really have to dig deep in any of his three previous runs, including in the Railway Stakes when he beat Monarch of Egypt. He beat him fairly well in the end, and he showed that turn of foot. But in the Group 1 race, the last one, the Phoenix Stakes, he had to dig deep, and he did on ground that he wouldn't have been in love with, and it's just displayed. We know he has the turn of foot, but now we know as well he has the willingness and the toughness to go and do it at that level, and to beat Monarch of Egypt, who had probably come on from his previous run. So yeah, I think, and as you say, he hasn't been beaten. He's unbeaten, as is Mums Tipple, as is Earthlight. So yeah, they're three very, very exciting colts. Three unbeaten colts. Something's going to have to give if they all line up, and it looks like they might, all going well now through the week. And as long as the ground is okay, it looks like they should. But no, I think, look, we don't know. They're juveniles, and a lot of with juveniles, it's a case of how much they're going to progress, and none of them have been. Until a horse gets beaten, we don't know how good he is, and none of these three have been beaten. So it's impossible to know how they're going to rate against each other. But I just think Siskin should be shorter than he is. What do you think?
I completely agree with you, which is boring. But you're Don McLean. You wouldn't.
I was sure you were going to say I completely disagree with you.
Earthlight is 3.25, which I think is generous. Mums Tipple 3.5, and Siskin is 6.0. Now I just swap Siskin and Mums Tipple on what they've achieved. I think it's a simple. I think that would make a lot more sense to me. Mums Tipple was electric and so exciting, and it was bearing in mind it was a Naval's last performance in the UK. Most people came away from York talking about Mums Tipple, who'd won a sales race. Fine. I don't necessarily buy into the whole. I spoke to a few people afterwards a couple of trainers actually, who said of other horses, who said, God, that's almost too good to be true, isn't it? And I don't think you can necessarily class a performance as too good to be true, because on the clock it was an exceptional performance, and that can't be ignored. However, for him to reproduce that in a Group 1 on his third start, he will be forced to go at a tempo he won't have been yet, and to do things he won't have had to do yet. When you extend away from horses and the caliber of horses he was, he's not going to get the opportunity to do that here. So I think he's a silly price. He might go off and win, but I'd be very, very surprised if he went off, if all these three line up, only a quarter of a point bigger than Earthlight, because Earthlight's form checks out, and he should be, for me, a clear favourite. That Morny form is very, very good. Ali's come out and won a Flying Childers for all six, might not have suited it on that occasion. The Raffle Prize form checks out. He was the horse really to get involved from off the pace. Clive Cox's horses come out and run well. So I'm surprised he's only that a quarter of a point shorter. Arizona came out and was third in the national stakes. I know he was hammered by Pinatubo. So the form is all there, and Clive Cox's horse, who I was talking about, came out. Is yet to run again, but had beaten Threat, and the Threat line checks out. So I think it's excellent form. I think he should be the clear favourite, and I'm surprised Mums Tipple's the price he is. I'd be surprised if anything else won it. I think Threat might go for it, which is interesting, although it's not certain at this stage. But I think Earthlight. The only thing that would concern me, Don, with Earthlight is if it's very quick ground. His best performances have come with cut underfoot. It was a good time on heavy ground in the morning. But the other point is his mum, Winter's Moon, was that little bit better with seeing he would cut underfoot, and a lot of her siblings were as well. So if it was good to firm, that might be a slight niggling concern. But looking at the weather forecast, I'm not sure it's going to be. But I hope they all line up either way.
Yeah, hopefully. So I think I mean, I know it was very soft for the Pre-Morning, but wasn't there a concern beforehand that it might be too soft for him?
Yeah, I think heavy, but
Yeah, for
but
any horse.
but I think and rightly so. But I think every single trainer on heavy, desperate ground, as it was described, would have
Yeah,
said, "We don't want this," because you just don't, do you?
no.
So, but he handled it fine. And look, I mean, Shamadal, goodness me, has got the with Pinatubo and Earthlight, has probably got
Hmm.
the standout juveniles or juvenile colts so far. But yeah, I'd be surprised if Earthlight doesn't win. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go off shorter than he is. And Mum's Tipple can frankly do one at that price for all he was very, very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. No, it wouldn't be surprising if later in the week, when running plans are finalised and as long as they're all running, that the market change. Like I think Mumstipple is as short as he's going to be, whereas Earthlight and Siskin, you could see them. You can't see them going off any bigger than that, bar something untoward happening with the ground or something else. Um,
Can
yeah,
Monarch of Egypt
I think that.
can Monarch of Egypt reverse form with Siskin, or was it his chance to do so last time, having been defeated at the end of June already?
Yeah, I'd have Siskin shorter than him as he is. You know, it would be nice to see them running against each other again. And he only has 3 parts of a length to find. And he did come on from his Railway Stakes run as people expected him to. Like he'd had a break before the Railway Stakes, and he improved from that to the Phoenix Stakes. So yeah, look, you can see why if you're connected to him, you wouldn't be afraid to have another go. You know, you could see why they would have another go. It's definitely not beyond the bounds, but I think Siskin did well on the ground and back on better ground. Like it's probably going to be. It won't be any softer than it was at the Curragh that day for the Phoenix Stakes, will it? At Newmarket, it'll probably be a bit better.
There's a fair bit of rain Look, this is Monday afternoon, but there's a fair bit of rain forecast over the coming days, and then it's meant to dry up a bit. So, I think we can be looking at non-extremes, which should provide no excuse for any of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the relative betting with those two is probably close enough to right.
As far as the Cheveley part goes, we've got raffle prize at more of a early market here, but around about 3.25, 5.5 for Dyer. Not certain she goes. Trobeau for Andre Favre's very interesting, although would be coming back in trip. 6.0, similar price for Living in the Past. Etoile is interesting for Aidan O'Brien. She's a fair price. We haven't seen her for a while. For all her form, looks pretty good. So I just don't know why we haven't seen her, but it'd be great if she turns up. But I mean, it looks to centre around raffle prize at the moment, and you can't argue with that Earth-like form back against her own sex. And the other thing is, I'm a big fan of horses that can lay up at Newmarket. Actually, that's a possible negative for Earthlight. I hadn't really considered that, but the way he did it was so impressive. But raffle prize, I think she'll be leading them along. And sometimes we've seen horses be brought over to the near side rail. Not sure exactly where the stalls are going to be on this occasion, and get there and stay there. I think it's a track where it can pay to be on the speed. I think there's going to be so much in her favour that quite rightly she heads the market anyway. Raffle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. She sets the standard definitely on her Pre-Morning run, and even her form before that, like her Royal Ascot run as well. And she's not giving away weight this time. Daya, I know she's second at the Curragh, but she was. You would have expected her to maybe do a wee bit better than that if she's going to go and beat Raffle Prize now with the £3 pull. The Raffle Prize was given her £3 last time. It's difficult to see. Whereas Raffle Prize has probably gone on from that. Maybe that run at the Curragh wasn't necessarily a massive step forward from her Newmarket run. So you can see why Raffle Prize would be in front of her in the betting. But Etoile is very interesting. If she does run, I don't know why she hasn't run since then. But it was very significant that Aidan O'Brien started her off in a Group 3 race for her racecourse debut, despite the fact that they had So Wonderful in the race. And she was a decent price for that race. So Wonderful was
12 to 1 and 1. I mean,
yeah, and like I know So Wonderful hasn't won yet, but she's run some very good races in defeat, including in that race against Love. But even like Static Beauty was third in that race, and she's enhanced the form since at Royal Ascot. So, yeah, Etoile is a very interesting filly if she does go and run, and maybe it's the right race for her. I'm sure the plan wasn't to leave her off from May and bring her to the Cheveley Park, but I'd say as the race has got closer, they've said, right, because she's won her Group 3, so it's a Group 1 is next step for her.
Well, they said Albany initially was the obvious plan, so she's obviously had a setback, but I just don't know where she is. But she was the one at the prices that was the most interested me. But obviously, it's a look. It's very dull to sit here and say I think the Morney form is the best juvenile form going, and both winners for these respective Group 1s are going to come out of that. But sitting here as I do at the moment until we know the final fields, that's exactly what I think. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, Rafa Price has to be favoured, of course. You know, she's the most rock solid. Be interesting if Trobo does come over. I can see Rafa Price beating Daya again. But no, I think you're right. I'd be agreeing with you that Etoile, she's the most interesting horse filly in the race. If she does come over, we don't know if she's going to run it up, but if she does, like, she's a big prize at the moment. But obviously factored into that is the fact that we don't know that she's definitely running. But if she was definitely running and does line up, then yeah, she could improve. Obviously, as we know, she'll have to improve from winning a Group 3, but it was a good Group 3 race, and it was her race course debut, so there's every chance that she will improve, and she was weak in the market, so she could improve significantly.
Last thing, I'm going to, and I know we didn't discuss doing this, but I kind of want to. If you could name the most impressive juvenile colt and filly, and the one that you're most excited about for the rest of the season, doesn't have to be in these races. For me, it would be the colt. For all I love Earthlight, it has to be Pina Tubo, and I'd be surprised if you're going to say anything different. But you do love Siskin. And for me, Alpine Star as a filly, I think we're either going to see her in the Lagardère or the Fillies Mile, but I think like the Fillies Mile. I cannot wait to see her again, and I think that Love was very good, but that only enhances her form, and I'm desperately excited to see her. No disrespect to Raffle Price, who we've just talked about. So they'd be my two. What about you, Donn?
Yeah, look, you can't get away from Pina Tubo. He's been breathtaking and more breathtaking as he's continued to run. It was great to see him over here last time. That was as we discussed at the time, that even my girls brought them along to the races, and they watched Pina Tubo and they were blown away by him. But yeah, look, Alpine Star, yeah, Cayenne Pepper, it'd be interesting to see where she goes. And another Jessica Harrington filly, Wind Racer. I'm not sure what she's going to do, and she has been disappointing in her last couple of runs, but if she were to, like earlier in the season when she won on a racecourse debut, she was thought to be up there with the likes of Albinia and Alpine Star and Cayenne Pepper even. So it'd be interesting to see where she goes between now and the end of the season. But yeah,
she was very disappointing, wasn't she?
She was. So it wasn't her running though. On both, she was disappointing the first time after her maiden win, from memory, and then the next time she was very weak in the market and ran well for a little bit, but then just faded. So I think hopefully we'll see the Wind Racer again soon enough.
Lovely stuff, Donn. Thank you very much indeed. We will we'll be reflecting on the Cheveley and Middle Part when we chat next week. But there are worse things to do because they look some absolute crackers. So. That's it from Donn and I as far as the Matchbook Racing review goes. Don't forget the pod will be coming up later this week, looking ahead to Newmarket in the main. What's going to be a really informative weekend. So look forward to chatting to you again then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.